Hello, hi. This is Zari. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to my womb prism. And I wanted to talk about something that is kind of disturbing. Well, it is disturbing. And I wanted to talk about it because I feel like it's very important. And I feel like the dream or the nightmare that I had not too long ago in this month, a couple weeks back, is extremely important. And I believe, and in this video, I'm going to talk about why I believe it may have been a premonition. So I want to go ahead and talk about it. So in this dream, and I'm going to forewarn you because if you are very sensitive to violence or because this is a trigger warning, if you are sensitive to violence and things like that, this might not be the video for you. You might want to click off now because this nightmare was rather dramatic. It was rather disturbing. But it's so disturbing that I didn't even want to talk about it until daylight came. I didn't even want to talk about it at night because it just like stuff like that kind of scares me. But I want to talk about it now. So, I had this dream where I was this detective and that was number one why it was so strange because I was this detective and I was on this case where this whole entire family was wiped out, if you know what I mean. And my job or my assignment at that time was to view the bodies. And I remember feeling the energy of the dream was so fearful or scary. I just remember dreading, even as a detective, to go into the home and actually view this scene. But I did, and I looked at everything. It was rather horrible. I really don't care to provide description. But anyway, once I started looking at everything and the bodies, this gentleman who was rather demon-like, I know he was a demon. He was, I don't want to say, I think he was ciphering. I believe he was ciphering energy off the deceased. And from what it seemed like, he was getting off, if you know what I mean, or becoming aroused by the fact that these people were dead, or, well, can't say that on here, unalived. And it just disturbed me so much. I just tried to run, and then I saw this unalived child. It was a boy, and I could see the holes on the body, if you know what I mean. And it just frightened me so much. And I remember feeling so sad. And then I just ran, tried to walk out of the whole building or the home because at that point I was just done with the crime scene. And I ran into this gentleman. I can't remember if he was a part of the squad or a part of the detective team, but he seemed to be very friendly. He seemed to be very nice, mannerable, kind. And I confided in him and said, "Hey, I saw the child," or whatever. And he asked me, he said, "What child?" And I looked there, the child was gone. And the dream kind of just continued and then it stopped from there. And boy, when I woke up, I just felt so frightened, and I immediately thought it was a nightmare, and I just started to begin to cleanse my home. I know I had burned some candles. I had burned about 3 of them. One of them had soot on it, and I thought maybe because I left the sooted candle remnants in my home, that maybe that was the reason why I was having some dark dreams. So what I did was I cleansed the area where the candles had burned, and then I cleansed the entire glass of the candle. And I didn't have any terrible dreams after that. But I say all that to say I don't think this was a nightmare. I think this was a premonition, because if you've been paying attention to the news, there has been a lot of violence against Black women, a lot of violence where women are in these relationships, Black women in particular, and they are becoming unalived by their partner or their spouse. And this one story stood out to me, the story of Serena Fairfax and her former lieutenant governor husband, Justin Fairfax, and how he killed her, and then he he unalived her and then turned the light and then turned the gun on him. Well, he took himself out. I want to say that because there's certain things I can't say on YouTube. But, and then the other man who took all of his children out, and he died in that police chase, I believe. I believe he died eventually. He was running from the police because he took out his children and he took out his spouses. I think it was the ex-wife and the wife. And if I had to look at that dream and think about what I saw, I believe that the demon in that nightmare or that premonition was him. It had curly hair, but the facial recognition looked very similar to the man that did that to those children and his wife. And it just freaked me out so much. I mean, when it first freaked me out, I couldn't even write it down in my journal, because I usually write down things that I have dreamed about or had nightmares about, and I just couldn't because it was just so dark. And I think about it and I said, oh my God, that looked just like the guy, the one that did that. And then the nicer gentleman, it seems as though that was maybe Fairfax, because to the world, he appeared to be this great guy, but behind closed doors, it may have been a different story, judging by how he did that to this great woman, amazing woman, which is just so sad to me and so tragic how she lost her life. And I don't know why this was a premonition, or what I think may have been a premonition, but I think maybe the spirit or God or the universe, because I'm very spiritual, has a big purpose for me, because I've been in an abusive relationship. I'm sad to say that could have happened to me, because I was in an abusive relationship for 3 years, and it could have turned ugly, because I remember getting up in the middle of court and speaking about how my significant other tried to threaten me with a machete. And it's just so scary when I think about it. But I'm glad I got out of that situation. I'm glad I'm in a better place, and glad me and my daughter are safe. So I say this, be very careful. I enjoy being single. People will tell you, don't be single. Need to find a husband or whatever, especially if you are a single mother like I am. It's considered bad in our society. But if you look at it, being single is actually really great, because you could be potentially saving your life And if you must date someone, be sure you vet them heavily, because it's just not worth losing your life. So, I want to say rest in peace to Miss Serena Fairfax. I hope she rests in power. I hope she rests in power, as well as the other women that lost their life. And it's just so sad. But I feel like we can start fighting for women more, by bringing awareness to this situation, because this is very serious. And child, my heart goes out to her children as well. So I just wanted to say that. I I couldn't talk about it for quite a time after that dream, but now I just feel like I'm compelled by the spirit to speak about it, because I've been doing this womb healing, healing, healing from male trauma, as well from generational trauma, and how the women in my family have dealt with men, and how that may have caused their trauma, things like that. So I've been working with womb. That's why this channel has womb in the title of it, because I've been really working with my womb and trying to exercise ways to, you know, trust myself and build my rapport with myself and love myself. And it's not about putting someone else before you, or getting a man to complete yourself. You're already complete without a man or without a person, your significant other. You don't need necessarily a man to complete you. You are wonderful just on your own. So I've been doing all of that healing in that aspect, as well as, just like I said, trusting myself, learning how to trust myself in all revenues, not just in terms of relationships, but in all revenues of life. Trusting myself to do things, and having the ability to do things, and being independent, you know. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that. It's very dark, this content or this subject. So like I said, I'm warning you, click off if you can't handle it. But I just had to talk about it. It's something that has been laying on my mind since all those things have been happening in the media. Yes. Give me a comment. Tell me what you think. Have a great day.